What's wrong with being a doubting Thomas? Although we've all done it, when we act like him, we become a stubborn child who refuses to budge until we get our way. Do you think you could have a close relationship with someone so immature? Remember, our faith is about our relationships with ourselves, with God, and with others. If we want more out of a relationship with God or anyone else, shouldn't we be working on it more? Since Paul wrote 13 passionate letters, which make up 13 books in the New Testament, you would think that he was an apostle. However, it wasn't until after the resurrection that Paul experienced a dramatic conversion. Paul used to be a zealot for the Jewish faith, hunting down Christians and taking them back to Jerusalem for trial. One day, while doing more of the same, he was struck by lightning, left blind, and heard Jesus speak to him directly. To read more about Paul's conversion, see the Acts of the Apostles, chapter 22, verses 3 to 16. In today's reading from his own experience, Paul is telling us that through Christ, each of us is being built up into a holy temple so the Holy Spirit of God can live inside us. Now listen to Paul's letter to the Ephesians in today's reading. Brothers and sisters, you are no longer strangers and sojourners, but you are fellow citizens with the holy ones and members of the household of God, built upon the foundation of the apostles and the prophets, with Christ himself as the capstone. Through him, the whole structure is held together and grows into a temple sacred in the Lord. In him, you also are being built together into a dwelling place of God in the Spirit. To access the infinite powers of the Holy Spirit inside us, we need to do our part, which includes accepting God's gift of faith and living out the two greatest commandments: to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, and to love your neighbor as yourself. To help us develop these relationships, we need to nurture our faith, which I'll go into after the gospel. Before I read a short psalm about God's unconditional love, remember that Paul lived these verses, and he's trying to get us to see the urgency of doing the same. Now listen carefully, because it is short. For steadfast is his kindness for us, and the fidelity of the Lord endures forever. Go out to all the world and tell the good news. Whenever you hear good news, you want to share it with the world, and that's exactly what God's calling us to do. But first, we need to have a mature faith. That is, like Paul said in the first reading, one that has been built into a dwelling place of God in the Spirit. Otherwise, we might end up being a doubting Thomas. Thomas obviously has an immature faith, but looks for proof from the material world about a mystical Jesus. His "I gotta see it to believe it" attitude prove he hasn't developed the Holy Spirit of God inside him. The temple of his body needs a lot of work. However, it's easy to be critical of doubting Thomas until we realize that we've done the same thing over and over again. Now listen to today's gospel. Thomas, called Didymus, one of the 12, was not with them when Jesus came. So the other disciples said to him, "We have seen the Lord." But Thomas said to them, "Unless I see the mark of the nails in his hands, and put my finger into the nail marks, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." Now a week later his disciples were again inside, and Thomas was with them. Jesus came, although the doors were locked, and stood in their midst and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here and see my hands, and bring your hand and put it into my side. And do not be unbelieving, but believe." Thomas answered and said to him, "My Lord and my God." Jesus said to him, "Have you come to believe because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and have believed." Are you a doubting Thomas, or are you the blessed who have not seen and have believed? Either way, to grow or keep growing in the faith, you need to work on developing your relationships with yourself, with God, and with others. Like I've said before, Jesus awakens the power of the Holy Spirit inside us, which is our true self. We find our divinity in God's gift of infinity, that is the Holy Spirit inside us. What's the power you'll receive from the Holy Spirit? God's infinite and indestructible power of love, which must be the foundation of your faith. Like in our most intimate relationships, the foundation of love is essential for maintaining that bond. Like an athlete in training, it's up to you to work on deepening your love for God and your neighbor, which also help you develop the 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit. We all have different gifts, but they all come from the same Holy Spirit. Only when your foundation of love is firm can you live an authentic Christian life and fully access the 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit: wisdom, understanding, counsel, resilience, knowledge, piety, and fear of the Lord, which is actually a fear of falling out of love with God, of letting our relationship with God fade away and becoming alienated from Him. Now, to get back to developing relationships, start with your relationship with yourself. Work on creating a healthy, balanced lifestyle for yourself. Take care of your mind, body, and soul. Be sure to get enough sleep, eat balanced meals, and practice stress reduction exercises when you're under pressure. For that, I use prayer. I take a deep breath and repeat out louder to myself, Jesus, I trust in you. Sometimes I'll pray my favorite St. Teresa of Avila prayer or another prayer I wrote myself. Below this video, I'm including a link to the prayer page on my website so you can find these. Be sure to nurture your soul by creating a positive, peaceful environment in your home, and ask yourself what else makes you feel better. For example, I love to dance, so sometimes I put on some music and dance to unwind after a long day. There are many ways you can nurture and grow your love for God and neighbor in your heart. Walking outdoors is a form of meditation you might not think about, like meditating on music. You can take walks in a park or anywhere outdoors and connect with God there. You might want to keep a journal and write down your thoughts, feelings, and questions that you have for God, and also write down His answers. You can read and reflect on the Bible or another faith-based book, which you can take to a park or anywhere else with you. If you prefer, you can keep a separate journal or notepad to make notes on that. Deepening your love for your neighbor can mean volunteering at a ministry in your church, organizing or taking part in fundraisers for others in need, or literally helping a neighbor near you. Remember, God doesn't want to overwhelm you. He wants to open you up to His world, the real world of all possibilities. Take one small step and see where it goes. Hear the Lord our God gently whispering the 2 sentences found in Psalm 46, verse 11. Be still and know that I am God. I am exalted among the nations on earth. Then, in the next sentence, hear the psalmist reassure you with his words. The Lord of hosts is with us. Our stronghold is the God of Jacob. God bless you. And be sure to take care of God's precious gift, you.